I can hear Charlie just fine.
How about now? We got audio now?
I hear you.
Okay, I know you do. We had a great conversation that everyone heard your side of, but it was probably they got
Oh,
the gist of it. I
yeah.
think that little audio gaffe was, I'd like to blame it on Zoom, but I think that was a human. I
Blame it
forgot
on
to,
Zoom.
I forgot to unmute myself.
Yeah.
Which, you know how many people would love to have a mute button with me?
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot. You know,
I'm
where's the Waymeyer mute button?
yeah.
Ah, it's not there.
Yeah. We got audio. It looks like you got audio now,
Yeah.
so you're good.
So today, before we get into this is all we did a whole brand new install on OBS with the audio stuff. So something that wasn't working before is working now, and something that was working before isn't working now. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's
Been there.
it's kind of like working with analog gear.
It's the same
You
thing.
got to come in every day and check it and make sure
Yep.
it's right.
Right. That's absolutely right. It's the same thing.
Oh man. Well, dude, thank you for joining me again. I wanted to
Oh,
do this
thanks.
sooner, but it just got a little crazy.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate we had a great time last time, and I was no problem coming back anytime.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of do this once a month actually, because I think there's enough stuff for us to talk about.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a million things that have happened already that we can talk about, and that doesn't include all the things that happen on a weekly basis to us. Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, that would be great. Would love to do that.
Let's see. Let's see who's here.
And it says your audio could probably come up someone's
right.
saying your audio could probably come up a smidgen.
I can do that.
That's a technical term.
A smidgen? Yes.
A smidget.
Yes, smidgen.
Yeah. I had a client the other day on a mixed note say, can you turn this up just an incy bincy tiny tad? That was
wow.
that was the message. I said, really? Okay.
That's a new one. I've never heard that.
An incy bincy tiny tad. So I guess I'll just breathe on the fader and good enough. Is that
just maybe if you stare at it hard enough?
Right.
Like that's use the force, it would,
right.
It would move
right.
It, maybe
use the force. If that's going to be the difference, sure, I'll do that.
Talk about the most bitchin' automation in the world. The force. If you
can sit
and stare at it and
just think about it.
Kick drum up.
Yeah.
Vocal
that's it.
Down.
That's it. Who needs flying faders when you can do that?
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be awesome.
You have anything new over there that you want to report on? Let's talk gear for a few minutes, then we'll get to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, let's see. Gear. Yeah, I got a second DBX 160A. We talked about that last time. I bought one, and I bought it from your buddy, Revive Audio. I think you've done some work with them.
Yep. They've
on some gear. I bought. He has a reverb store, and that's how I found out about him. And I bought one unit. And then on our channel, we had shot out a stock unit versus a Revived Audio modded DBX 160. We did a video, and I liked it so much. I said, I got to have a pair. So then I went out and bought another one from him. So I got two of those now. I try to buy everything in pairs now, because it just seems to me like having a mono compressor almost doesn't make sense to me anymore. I want to have two of everything, It's
the same for me. I like to have pairs of stuff, even though there's some that get used more often as just one. Like my Blue Stripe, I don't have a pair of.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I don't. For what I'm doing, I'm never sitting there going, "Oh man, if I had one more," which is why I haven't bought one. But I'm with you on the pairs thing.
So I got that, and then I'm heavily considering a stereo bus EQ, and I'm looking at the Moog EQ4. Which I love the plugin. I use the plugin all the time, and I'm like, I really like to get the hardware of that.
Have you checked out the ultraviolet?
No, but I have kind of the ultraviolet, or at least part of it on the SSL Fusion, because I have the SSL Fusion, so that has the low and the high band. I think the ultraviolet has the mid band in it, so it's a
low mid and a high mid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't checked that unit out because I have some of that in the Fusion. But I love the it's not brand new, but I love the API 5500 stereo EQ. when I bought that, and I put that on my drum bus, and I keep saying I'm going to try it on something else, but it sounds so good on drums that I just park it there, and I'm like, I'm not going to move it. So now either I got to buy another one, but then I thought, well, maybe I should get something different, and that's why I was thinking
Right.
about the Moog, because I use the Moog plugin on my print track. I hit the Moog every single mix. So I'm like, why don't I just buy the hardware of that?
Yeah.
So that's that'll be coming shortly. That'll be coming shortly.
You know what I did recently? I've been trying to kind of move some gear around just to check it out on mixes. And I went for my drum bus is usually the successor, and I used the Tonelux EQ5P,
Yeah.
which is API-ish. I mean,
Yep.
it's all designed by Paul Wolf, so it's out of that API heritage. And it was cool. But this time, these last couple mixes, I ran my EQ into the heritage, the HA73. In the line inputs and use that Neve style EQ.
Oh yeah. That's that
Holy.
preamp EQ. Yeah.
Yep. The funny thing is I don't use the preamp as much. I mean, I do some. Last week I had there's a new thrash band I've been working with, and we had like 31 channels I think set up for the session. We tracked everything live, and I did have some of the guitars going through it because they sound good there.
Yep.
But like drums, I almost never come off the console, so I end up using the line inputs on those a lot. And I decided to park that whole like kind of heritage thing on the drum bus and see how it reacted. And I actually, it might stay. The next mix, I'm going to put the Neve 8803 on the drum bus so I can kind of compare the two. Because the recall on the 8803 is awesome. Because they've got an app for it. You take a snapshot, you save it, you have to pull that thing. I've been doing that even on sessions that I know that we're coming back and we need to get similar sounds. If that's my kick and snare EQ, I just save a snapshot so I can go back to that and then just do minor tweaks.
Just tweak it in. Yeah.
Oh my God, that app is just USB connection. Shows you a photo of it on there, and then it shows you when you start the recall back, it shows you what to move, and then as you move it on the gear, it shows you what's going on in the app, and it makes it so easy.
Yeah, it's
about 10 of those.
Yeah, I can't believe not every manufacturer isn't doing that now. There's a couple. Neve is doing on some of their gear. I use a lot of West Audio gear. They do all of that digitally controlled plug-in on an analog box.
But that you can automate that stuff, right? Like literally control it. Yeah.
Yes, you can.
The Neve is recall only.
Yeah, but that's still really cool. I mean, that's still, I don't really automate it so much, use it for automation. It's more for the recall piece of it. But it's just so, I can't believe not every manufacturer with brand new gear is not doing that. Because that just makes it so convenient. I would love to have all my gear have either that kind of map or a recall thing just to make it easier. Because it's still all analog path, which is great.
Yep.
I know in the Neve consoles in their Genesis series, when you buy their dynamics or their EQs, it's not, the difference there is it's just a PCIe card. It's in the board. There's no physical pots, and it's all controlled with a plug-in, which is not to me as good because I like to physically touch the hardware. You know what I mean? But it's all that digitally controlled analog path recall, which makes sense, which makes sense.
Exactly. I mean, you're right. Even if it was just the recall structure, it would make things better.
Yeah,
it'd be nice. At some point, I want to try some of that West Audio stuff out.
I love it.
Even just doing the simple recall of knowing that I can do whatever I want, store it, and it takes literally like 3 seconds. I pull it up, I hit start on the recall, and you just go, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It's great. And for tracking, like we did 3 days with Mortalis. So after day 2 and 3, once the rig gets shut down and when you turn that stuff back on, the Neve doesn't come, the 8803 doesn't come back on with every setting already on there, especially if you've done some of the push button. There's a lot of modifiers in there, right?
Right.
But if you save that snapshot, all I have to do is load that snapshot on the app, and it automatically turns all those buttons back on if nothing has changed.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
great.
That's really great.
Before I'd write it down. Okay, I had this one turned on. I pushed that button in. I pushed that button in. And then inevitably, we'd come in the second day. We'd start tracking. I'm like, man, why does my snare sound different?
You forgot to push the button.
And I'm like, son of a,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the, like some people, if that's the downside of analog, is that the recall and the reset up, it's always different and it's a pain in the ass. I mean, that's the trade-off, so unless you You go into a desk or console that's, you know, a real high end piece where a lot of that stuff is in there.
Right.
You got to deal with that. You know,
Yep.
it's just part of the game, you know, if that's what you want to do. But I still say in the end, that trade off to me is worth it when the benefits of the workflow and the sound to me far outweighs that inconvenience.
Oh, absolutely.
For me, it does anyway. I
Yeah.
mean, far outweighs it.
And I think once you make peace with the whole recall and all
Mm-hmm.
that thing, and it just becomes part of what you do, it's not really an issue anymore. You know what
No,
I
it's
mean?
not. It's not. And again, we talked last time about, and you know, when do you really, how often do you really have to, and if really have to recall, and what can you do to maybe not have to do it as much and try to, you know, limit
Yeah.
that if you can. And you can't, you really can. I mean, you can limit it. It's not like, well, you never are going to do it. I mean, I say that because it shocks people and I love to just say I don't do them and people start freaking out. But you know, but the truth of the matter is I don't do a lot of them. But if I
Right.
have to do them, there is a process. We can do it. And I don't know about you, but when, you know, when I'm billing a project or mapping out a quote, all of that is figured in. I mean, that's figured in that there's going to be that manual setup time, recall time, whatever you're going to call it. It's built
Right.
into my bill. So they're paying for it anyway, you know, on the piece. Cause I don't know how you do, but I charge by the project. I don't charge by the hour because I kind of know what it's going to take. And sometimes I'll make out and it takes a little bit less. And sometimes I may lose out. It takes a little bit more, but I kind of build all that in and session prep and setup and recall and all of that. So it's part of my bill. So
Yeah, mixing I build the same way, but I don't most of the time on the tracking side.
yeah, I
You
can see
know?
the tracking side where there's way more involved and you never know what you're going to deal with. And maybe
Yeah.
so then you have to do an hourly thing or maybe it's a block a time for a certain amount of money. And then every hour over that, maybe there's a charge or something. But I could see where that's a little bit more difficult to predict because recording sessions, you don't, you know, you just know you're going to have issues and you just don't know when they're going to be and how long they're going to take,
Yeah.
what
And
they're going to.
some bands I can get pretty close with on that. But you know, so I get with it's like, okay, you're coming in, you want to do 5 songs. I always hear stuff beforehand. I
Mm-hmm.
never say yes to anything without hearing it first.
Oh, yeah,
Because
me
I'm
neither.
not doing the commercial studio thing where I'm just renting the room out. You know, it's where I work.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
I'm going to work on it, I want to make sure what it is. That way, it gives me an idea, and I can go, okay, here's where we are level wise. I dig it. Let's do it. Here's the amount of songs you want to get. Here's the type of songs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can kind of go, okay, based on what I've heard and what you're doing, I think we can do it in this amount of time, but this is what could extend that, or this is what could make it less.
Right.
And then I try to just work within that. But it also gives a lot of the bands that I work with, because I'm in the indie market a lot, you know, so
Mm-hmm.
if I came to someone and go, look, you're doing an album, we can do it. Here's your budget. We can do all this. Here's the amount of days and everything. It's going to be 15 grand.
Right.
That number initially will freak a lot of people out,
Oh, sure.
you
That's a big,
know?
yeah, of course. An indie artist,
So
especially. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a lot easier to go, okay, look, here's your goal. This is where you want to be all the way
Mm-hmm.
back here. We're here right now. Let's figure out the possible ways to get here and map it out that fits your budget and allows us to get things done without having you have to mortgage limbs. And so far it's
Yeah.
worked pretty well, and my rates are really reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And so far I haven't had any issues with it, and it seems to keep everybody a little less like, oh my God, even if it ends up being that much money in the end, and it quite often does end up being that much, it's a lot easier to take in smaller
Yeah.
chunks,
Yeah. Yeah.
not
You're kind of
knowing that it's like,
working
oh
and
my
yeah,
God.
kind of working and maybe paying as you're going and maybe
Yeah.
at different milestones as opposed
Yep.
to just handing them an invoice for 15 grand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I do the same thing on mixing it. If we're mixing an album, I don't bill you for an album. Well, depending on what we'll normally do, maybe buckets of 2 or 3 songs. You know, depending, so if I'm doing a 14 song record, we may do, you know, 4 song buckets, 4 songs. Here's what it's going to cost. Let's get those done, sign them off. I deliver you the mixes. Okay. What are the next 4 you want to do? You know,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yep.
And that helps the artist to kind of plan out because that could take a few weeks, right? So they have a few weeks to kind of move finances around or whatever they got to do so they don't have to pay me all up front.
Exactly.
And that works too. So yeah, a lot of it depends on the artist, if you have prior relationship with them, and you know, there's a lot of factors, and I try to be, I try to conform to what I can do for them with this, you know, there's some non-negotiables, but for the most part, I try to work within that because, you know,
Right.
it is expensive. But I also want to make sure that they, you know, that you get paid fairly for your time and that you also have the time allotted so you can do a really good job. Because the one thing I won't do is I won't cut corners because I can't fit inside of a timeline. And if that means that sometimes I go over a little bit and maybe I lose out, you know, on a couple of songs where I'm not making as much money, but they're happy, then they come back and they'll say to me, we'll get it on the next, you know, I'll make it up to you on the next one. And we kind of work like that. And that seems to work for me.
Okay, that's a great point. I'm that low? Yeah, I'm in the dark because my freaking light went out. Hold on.
out of all the problems to have, that's not that big of a problem.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. You look great now.
See now? Oh, look at that.
Now it looks really good.
Now you guys are stuck looking at this face.
Right,
See, I was trying to do everybody a favor.
I didn't feel like shaving today. Yeah.
Man.
Right. And he says your audio needs to come up that much,
Which
10
is
dB.
weird. I mean, I'm seeing really good levels of where I'm at.
Yeah, and you sound balanced to me in my headphones, but I don't know.
Anybody else, let me know if my audio needs to come up and I'll go push it. But I'm almost in the red on this side. I'm actually trying out doing the lab thing today.
Oh, you are?
I wanted some freedom.
Nice.
But anyway, I want to get back on that. Holy crap, man! Now I'm like, it's like the sun just went on in here. Jeez, what am I doing? All right, fine, I'll push it up.
Turn his audio up. Go ahead, turn it up.
There we go. If you guys say so. Check. If David's gonna yell at me, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, no, go ahead, do it. Yeah.
I saw that all caps.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, I'm like, I'm not gonna piss David off.
No, he usually does that to me too, but he's good.
He and I need to talk about patch bays because I like those patch bay videos.
Yeah, he did some good cool patch bay videos for us, which was great.
And I agree with him on the non-normaling thing. I don't know, with the whole outboard thing, I don't know why anyone would not non-normal their outboard gear. But that's a whole other topic. I want to step back to something you said.
Oh, sure.
About the crap. Now I got patch bays in my head, and I forgot what it was you said.
Oh, we're talking about rates and charging per hour, per project, that kind of thing.
Oh, yes. So you said that you don't cut corners and try to do something, squeeze something in a time frame just to kind of to fit a budget or whatever.
No, absolutely not.
I think that's a great topic because there's a lot of videos that I see that. See, now I'm peeking coming out of here, guys. I gotta take this down a little. I see the red.
Well, it could just be maybe I'm talking. They're saying, yeah, you maybe because you have a lav and I have a dynamic mic, so you may have to crank yours more to get that audio to come through.
I know, but I'm like coming out of OBS. I am literally at
you're not
dBFS.
Yeah, but you're not distorting or anything. Your audio sounds clean.
I'll try to talk louder. I think that's an interesting topic of workflow because so many of the videos I see on YouTube from all sorts of different people all talk about faster, 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 hack this to do faster, hack this to do faster, faster, faster. And I get wanting to work, you know, quickly so things move forward, but this whole concept of just faster, faster, faster to me is weird. Because it's like forcing yourself to work in this thing to be faster instead of listening to the music and making sure it's your mix or whatever is right.
Right.
So
that's right.
So it sounds like that's what you do too. It's like, even though, you know, which is why it's the give and take. So you'll have one mix, like you think it's going to take this and one takes this long, but the next one you kind of get here. And at the end, the money side of it kind of works out, but you're never stopping something because it's taking too long or just saying, hey, this is done.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it long enough now that I kind of know and I could get within an hour of how long it really takes. But, I'm a kind of a geeky thing. I take very detailed notes. Every mix I do for every client, I know when I start, when I stop, each day, how long I work on it, just so I get a feeling at the end of the project. I already quoted them. I'm not going to change the price, but then I'll add up my time on my notes and go, how long did this really take me? What did I think it was going to take me when we set up the project? And I'm usually really close. Sometimes, there's a song or two recently where I was way off, and it took me, probably 3 or 4 more hours than I originally thought. And I didn't bill him anything extra, but it needed to be right. It was just a complex song, a lot of things going on, a very dense mix, and I had to spend more time on it. And that's just part of it. In the end, I want to make sure they leave happy, because then they come back, and and I don't even, they know, it depends on the client. If it's a brand new client, especially, I want to make sure that they know how much time I spent on it, and to make sure that they're happy. And I don't go back and upcharge, and I don't do any of that. I charge by the project. It is what it is. And and on the flip side, there's been times where, it takes me an hour less to do because it was quick and it came together quickly. You know what I mean? So it all kind of works out. I don't, I feel like I've been doing it, as long as I feel like I'm being paid fair. Sometimes I'll make a little more, sometimes I'll make a little less, but in the end, it's not about speed for me. It's about quality. I mean, yes, the way you set up your systems and your workflow, and the way you have your gear set up, and you try to be as efficient as you can. But I never, ever am looking at the clock going, okay, I billed them for 4 hours to do the mix, and I'm at 3 hours and 45 minutes, and I'm not even close. I got to rush through it. I don't ever even look at it like that. I go, it's done when I feel like it's done. And this is part of the reason why, when it kind of ties back in a way to where I say, well, I really don't have to do a lot of recalls, because I make sure that first thing I send them, and again, doing all the stuff that I try to do on the front end, that if I get more than a handful of, can you just turn that up, turn that down a little bit, that's all the notes I want to get, because those are 5-minute fixes. So, and I don't get more notes than that. As a matter of fact, I was just doing a mix last week for a client, and this was a tough one. This one took me a long time to do. It's a lot of, you get all kinds of, it was a pop track, so there's all kinds of sound effects, all kinds of stuff going on. And after about 6 hours, I'm thinking, okay, I think I couldn't decide where I thought I was ready to send them. And I was going back and forth, and I was tweaking and tweaking. And I says, you know what? I'm just going to send it and get his feedback. He's good. I'm going to get a laundry list of notes. It's okay. This is a challenging mix. I sent him the mix. He said, it's perfect. Don't change anything. And I'm thinking, really? And I'm thinking to myself, and I said, I wrote him back. I said, are you sure? You listen to it a couple of times. He goes, no, it's exactly what I want. And I threw me completely for a loop, because I thought because he had all these special little sound effects, and I was making judgment calls on how loud they should be and how they should fly in and come out. And I'm thinking, that stuff's very subjective. And I'm thinking he's going to want some of those things changed. He wanted nothing changed. So I probably could have sent it to him an hour or two earlier, but in my head, I'm thinking it's not done. It's not done. It's not done. And I'm going back and forth and turn this up. Oh, now it's too loud. Turn it back down. Listen to it again. Shit, it's got to go back up again. One of those things. And if I would have just said, you know what, send it to him, I think it's done, I probably would have made a little more money on that one, because he didn't want any changes made. So, but that's just part of it, and it's all good. It's all good. Like I said, because I feel like I'm charging a fair amount of money. Either way, I don't feel like, boy, I lost my shirt on that one. I don't really get into those situations.
Right.
I don't. So it's,
Do you ever use like Listen To or anything like that to send audio so people can be involved in the process?
Yeah, I do. I have what the hell, Mix Up, I think is the name of the app. I do use one of those apps where I can send it and they can make their little notes, and I put it right in the app, and I can see it in real time. And they actually can mark it, so they could put the comment in exactly in the track where the part comes up, and I can listen to it, and you just plug it in on your master bus on your DAW, so they can say comment at 1 minute 37 seconds, and it just brings the playhead right to where they're talking about, and I can just make the change, which is really nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that works out really good, and I think that's it's like a, I don't know, $50 app or something. I forget. It wasn't a lot of money. And
what's it called?
I think it's called, it's called
look this up.
Mix Up, I think it's called. It's got a weird, funny name to it. I gotta think about it. I think it's Mix Up. It's the app, where I got it through puremix.net. You can get a free version of it. When I was a member of their website, you get it through there.
Mix Up Audio?
I think that's it. Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know why I don't remember that name, but it's a cool little app. And
it's too simple.
And it works, it seems to work. And what it's great for the client is that it's they can get that anywhere on their phone, on their computer. So they could be on the road, get it on their phone, throw their earbuds in, listen, make the change right on their phone. I get it in real time, which is kind of nice. And then this
Interesting.
way I don't, and then this way too, I don't need to email MP3 files and Dropbox and all that. I don't need to do any of that. It's all done in the app. And then
Yeah,
when the,
I only
yeah,
do the email thing once we think we've got it.
yeah,
Go, okay, that's it. Okay, I'm gonna bounce, and I bounce a wave if I'm working with somebody. I don't even bother with the MP3 thing anymore. So I'll just, okay, we think we're right. I'm gonna bounce you a wave. You're gonna sit for 20 minutes at home. You're gonna listen a few times in all your
right.
places, whatever, and then hopefully we're gonna put it to get better. If there's anything, there's like 1 or 2 changes, and
Yeah.
then that part of it's really helped my overall workflow though, because the whole send it off, wait, get notes back, when you don't know when you're going to get them sometimes.
Right.
And I think you do the same thing as me. As I set up when I'm doing a mix, it's like, okay, it's scheduled. I need everyone to know how I'm mixing, so that either if you're not in LA, I'm going to send you a link. You can listen to it. If you're in LA, you're going to come at night. I'm going to work for the day. We're going to get it. You're going to come. And we're going to finish it together. And then I do a next morning. We do a check, and then by noon, we get any last minute notes or sign off on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And next.
Yeah, it's that quick. Unless there's something on the front end where we're planning out the project and I know they're traveling or something, but it's all built into that schedule. But usually if I send them a mix today, by tonight we should have the notes. And then we talk about that on the front end. And that, I'm really big about talking with the client. I do a Zoom call with them. Nothing's an email. Everything is face to face when we're setting it up. And they know what the expectation is. And I make sure they understand that, hey, look, I'm waiting for you. I need to keep moving. And so, I don't want to rush you. I want you to listen. I want you to be happy. But within 24 hours, I need to know what we're doing.
Right.
And again, I've never had an issue. I know sometimes people say, "Oh, you can't do that, this, that." Yes, I'm like, look, man, I've been doing this for years. I've never had an issue with someone where I couldn't get them to get back to me, or it was, and I think a lot of that's because I try to do a lot of preparation before we even start, and I get to know the client a little bit, and we do a Zoom call and all of that, and that really helps, resolve or make sure everyone's on the same page. And I don't think I've ever had a problem where I was sending off an email and waiting for 4 days for someone to get back to me. I've never had that happen. Never, ever. That's why some people will say, well, I got to work all in the box because I got to be able to work on 4 different projects in a day because I'm waiting for clients. I'm like, really? Okay. If that's your workflow, then yeah, you don't want a console. You don't want any of this stuff. If you have to be able to go from one session to another, 3 or 4 a day, because you're waiting on feedback notes. And I said, then analog is not for you. It's just not.
No.
But I don't know. I mean, maybe that's true. I work with, like you, with mostly indie people. I'm not working with labels and people, that are traveling all over the world and they're on tour, and I'm not working with those kinds of clients. So if I send them something within a day, they get back to me.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too just comes down to setting that expectation up front, being open. Here's what the process is going to be. Here's how we need to work this. And then just keeping communication open when you're sending stuff. And then obviously if you're good at what you're doing, a lot of these things aren't issues, but
they're not issues. They're not issues. And usually it's, again, it's a handful of notes. It's, it's a little couple of tweaks here and there, and that's all it should be. If I've done my job right, then that's all it should be, and then it's no big deal. It's like, okay, I could turn that up and down, turn down vocal a little bit, boop, 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 send you the second mix. I give them 3 revisions in my pricing structure, although I never say unlimited revisions, but if it had to be, it would be. I mean, I'm going to go above and beyond, but I can't remember more than maybe once or twice where we ever went beyond the 3rd revision in 15 years, ever, whether it was in the box or on a console. It's usually if we go beyond that 3rd, they're really happy with the 2nd mix or the 3rd mix, but then we want to try something. Can we try something clever here? And I'll go, okay, we'll try it. And then they go, and that wasn't such a good idea. Can we just go back to what we had? It's like, yeah, okay. So it might be one of those little things where if they want to try something, that just to see what it would sound like or whatever. But I've never had a problem. That's why when I see stuff online and read through comments and stuff, and I don't know, people, I don't know. I've never had an issue. I've never had to have someone come back to me 4 times. I've never, ever had a client come back to me a month later and go, oh, by the way, can we turn down the overheads a little bit? I've never, ever had that happen. I don't know.
I've gotten those sometimes from the less experienced musicians, the ones that, you know, haven't maybe done it for 15, 20 years and understand things, where they get into these like half dB moves here and there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's my thing, if you come back to me and you want, oh man, the hi-hat needs to be up a half dB in the verse. Okay, does this fundamentally change the song? Does that a half dB make the song different? Well, no, but it'll be a little louder. Then we're not changing it.
Right.
Because it doesn't change. We're not going to go do a recall for that because it doesn't change anything. If you come back to me and go, man, my vocal performance is shite, I want to redo it so we can get it right. Okay, that's a recall, because that changes the song.
That's different. That's not a recall. We're re-recording a performance. That's re-recording the part of the record, and that it's same thing. I don't record, but if mixing. But if someone wanted to come back and totally reduce, and I go, yes, we can do that, but it's so many hundreds of dollars an hour. If I'm, you know what I mean? If you want to pay for the time, we'll do it. But like you said, the few times I've been asked about it, usually when you talk reasonably with them and say, wait a minute. So do you want to turn that up? How much? You really want to spend $250 for me to recall the whole session? We go back. It's because it's a half a day's worth of work to do all of that, as you know.
And that's why I always ask people, does this fundamentally change the song for the better? Or is it just different? Or is it going to be something that only we are going to know?
Right.
You know, if it doesn't benefit the listener and how the song translates, it's like, don't spend the money.
Then why do it? You were right. Save your money. If there's something else going on there, it's really not, you know, what are you not happy with? If because then it's like you said, it's not really the mix. It's, well, I didn't like my performance. I didn't like my guitar solo. Okay, well, that's a different question. And then in your situation, sure, you want to come back and relay a guitar solo down, no problem. We can do that. But here's what that's going to cost, because I'm a big believer in, if we did all this preparation on the front end, and if you know the expectations, and again, I always say, people, this is after we've signed off the mix and I've delivered you the files. We've gone back and forth, we've listened, we made the tweaks. I mean, shame on you, client, if you don't like the guitar solo now. I mean, what about when we were listening to it? You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's got to be some, again, it's expectations, right?
Yeah.
But I've never had that issue, so that's not commonplace, you know. It's just not. It's just not. And so,
and you know, the other thing too is, the longer you listen to something, if you wait 2 weeks and listen to something again, you're going to feel differently about what you hear.
No question.
So many things influence the way you like something on any given day.
Right.
You know, because I've got up and go, man, I didn't quite get that mix right. The next day I wake up and go, what am I thinking? I really dig what I did. 3 weeks later, I'll listen to it and go, man, why did I do that on that guitar? 6 months after that, I'm like, what am I thinking? I love what I did on that guitar.
Right.
You know, so it's like, in some ways, all this stuff has to be a snapshot in time. Like you have a time where it's done and that's it. Going forward, no matter how I feel about it from this day forward, it's done.
And that's the beauty. Some people will say the problem, but the beauty when you worked old school analog is you had to do that.
Yeah.
You know, when Aerosmith put out an album, they're not, and it's out and it's mastered. They're not going back and going, I don't like part of that album. Well, you may not like part of that album, but the producer and the AR guy and the label's going to say, we're putting it out. You know, whatever you don't like, we'll do with the next one. You know, no one goes back. But with digital recording, the beauty of it is you can go back, and the beauty of it is you can do it a million times, and you can have unlimited tracks.
And that is also the downfall.
Yeah, it's the good and the bad. And so I'm a big believer in, with a live performance. You know, it's a lot. I love that you record bands live, you know, the warts and all. You know, there's something charming about when you see a live performance of an artist. Yeah, there's mistakes. They never play it the same way twice in a row. And that's the beauty of it. You were there on a unique performance. You saw a moment in time. and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I like that kind of rawness and kind of like we're shooting from the hip, as opposed to the ultra polished, ultra produced stuff. Me personally.
Well, I do too. I mean, we'll do a lot of comping. You know, it's not just, I mean, some artists come in and they can just nail it and you get a tick, you're like, holy crap. But a lot of the times we'll do a fair amount of comping between the drums, the bass, the guitars, whatever, but it's not fixing.
No, and it's all in that time for that
like
day.
The fix it thing.
Right. Like it's all in that day, or like you said, you may comp and you may do a performance over the course of a project, but it's still a finite amount of time, and that's a snapshot. You know, you may comp a vocal, you know, over a course of a couple of days, but it's that snapshot, those couple of days. It's not 6 months from now, you know.
Right.
And so, yeah.
I like decisions. I don't like options.
Yeah, no,
I'm not
I hear
a fan
you.
of options. I mean, that's why I think I record the way I do with the artists that I work with. We're trying to nail the sound 80 or 85% at recording. So the mixing really starts at the recording process.
That's right.
You know,
that's
and then
absolutely
of course
right.
You can push things whatever way you need to go after that.
Right.
But if you get that sound from the beginning, one, it makes whatever sound you're going to put on top of that easier to figure out what you need because you already kind of have your sound going.
Right.
I've also found that all the artists really get into it when they start hearing it that way, and you go through the process. You know, hey, that snare isn't working. Can we try something else? Hey, I mean, last week we did a whole different guitar rig for one of the guitar solos because it wasn't working for a solo. Hey, are you into trying something else out? Hell yeah. Great. Switcheroo. Let's see what happens.
Right.
And it becomes very interactive. And I've found that it keeps people in the session a lot when we're a bunch of us here in the room, especially. It's not a bunch of people sitting back on their phones in the corners or whatever. Everybody tends to stay more engaged because it's, oh, wait, what are you doing? Oh, wait, that's what it sounds like? Ooh, I don't like that one, but can we try that? Yeah, sure.
Right.
And it turns into this playground kind of thing, which is really fun, especially for me because then I get to geek out. But it's fun when you see other people get into that and then they really start buying into working that way.
Right.
And then you hear it come out in the recordings because everybody's having fun.
Yeah, it's more creative, right? It's the actual creative process. It's not much different than when they were actually writing the tune itself.
Yep.
And they were creative and trying a bunch of stuff, and this works and that doesn't work. Well, the recording process is the same way. You can make you can make a song sound completely different depending on how you record it. I mean, you can make it sound like two totally different songs. And so that's creative, and I think artists like that, even if they don't understand the geeky part. But musicians, even if they don't understand it, they're geeky people too, you know.
Yeah.
And so
they can
like
hear what
stuff.
you're doing, even if they don't know the technical side of things.
Right.
You know?
So I think it's more creative for them, you know. And so I think that's making music. You know, I always say you don't work music, you play music. You know, I don't like cookie cutter and templates, and you know, I know there's a place for them and it's cool, but I like everything starts from zero every single time.
Same
you know.
Here.
And it doesn't matter if, well, you're going to patch that thing in the patch bay like you do on every mix. I don't care. I like going over there and putting the thing in the patch bay. I don't know. It takes 30 seconds. Okay. But I don't, I like starting from zero.
I think sometimes a lot of these things get blown out of proportion of how hard they are, how long it takes. You know what I mean? Like doing a patch bay thing, once you've done it enough, it's not really that much harder than going through your plugin list that's this freaking long. And then sitting there and fiddling with the plugin. You know, patch, there's my piece of gear, a couple knobs. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Done. I'm working again.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
so
usually the people that say that typically are the people who have never worked with this stuff.
Right.
So they don't really know what it is. And I can understand that if it looks like, wow, that would be a real big pain in the ass. But once you do it, you realize it's really not a pain in the ass. And it's actually kind of fun. And in some respects, it is faster because to me, it's easier to go, okay, I got 3 compressors in the rack I can choose from, you know, and I don't care if you just throw a dart at one and go, we're using that one. And you patch it in. That's way faster than going through the plugin list and going, okay, which 1176 compressor plug am I going to use? The Waves one or the Universal Audio one or the Plugin Alliance, you know? And so I think it's faster in that respect too, because it's like, well, we don't have a lot of options, man. You know?
No.
And it doesn't really matter if you have you know, the different styles of compression, opto, FET, blah, 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 VCA. And you just, does it really matter in the end if I put a VCA on that bass guitar, if I put an opto compressor? I mean, they sound a little different. Us geeks can hear the difference, but in the end,
I think it depends on what meme you see on Instagram.
Right, yeah, right. You can make it sound good, and no one's going to know the difference, and the bass player's not going to know the difference, and so it's all, you got to keep it all in perspective. And and I'm all about no templates, no mix, no projects the same, and we start from zero.
Yeah,
and that's just the way my mind kind of works.
Then you got to leave something open for whimsy. You know, a little bit of exploration, at least for me. Otherwise, if it was template, it'd be so boring. It's like, I'd rather go sell insurance. You know, so it's like, I'd like to be surprised every once in a while.
Yeah,
by something I accidentally do.
Yeah, a mistake. We were doing, David was here. We were doing a video for compressors or something. I forget which one it was. He probably remember. But anyway, we were doing something, and he had made a mistake on the way we set it up, and we heard something. Well, that's really cool. And Dave's looking at the compressor going, it's not even compressing any, like the gain reduction meter wasn't moving, but we were just running the signal through it, and it was just something sounded so good, and we went, what? And we kept it in the video because we went, you see that we didn't mean to do that, but it happened and it sounded really cool. But if you had it all templated out and you had all your settings kind of, and I always hit this compressor this way, and you had your patch cables in, we never would have stumbled upon that thing on that little trick, their little tip or whatever you want to call it. And so I don't know. I just like doing that again, to me, and that all circles back around where I don't care if it takes a little longer, if that's what it takes to make it right, and I'm having fun. So what if it takes 30 minutes longer?
Exactly. On the recall thing, Lido says that's what they had tape ops. That's what tape ops were for back in the day, setting up recall settings and recalling them before every session. Yeah, it would be nice to have that. That's my phone and me now.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's, you know, again, I just find it's just part of the process. It's no big deal. I don't see it to be a big deal. And again, I guess if you're in a situation, in a working situation where there's an expectation that you need to be able to, you know, recall stuff instantly. And if that was the work, the kind of clientele or stuff that you're working with, well, then you should have a set of tools that are conducive to that particular workflow.
Exactly.
And that's it. Don't try to stick a square peg in a round hole. If that's what you really need, then you're right. Stay in the box. There's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful. Great. Or get a real high end, like a duality or a big console that will allow you at the touch of a button to have everything just snap back. If you can do that, great. You know, if you want to spend the dough, you can do it. But
and that's an area where I think SSL, and I guess the Neve, like even the 88, you know, the V series, you can do a lot of that stuff with too. And I'm not talking about the Genesis thing, but like more standard kind of layout consoles. Yeah, SSL has really done a great job with that, and so has the Neve 88, the V series stuff.
Yeah,
you know, but not most of us can't afford it.
No, I mean, a duality starts at about 175 grand. I couldn't afford that. I mean, and even if I could, again, my whole thing was I don't want to figure out a way to be able to recall everything faster. I want to be able to figure out a way to how we don't do as many recalls. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great thing. That's the perspective. You're not setting up to have to keep fixing things. You're setting up and learning to do a better job so you don't have to do that.
Right.
That is a really good perspective that I think all of us need to keep in mind.
Yeah, because I mean, if you tell someone, that's why I don't tell someone there's unlimited revisions. Because guess what? With some artists, you'll never be done.
Yeah. And no mixes, I mean, in the reality of things, I don't know if any mix is ever 100%. At some point, you've got to just say, you know what, that's it. I'm moving on.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. And then that particular project is a time capsule, and it is what it is, and you love it for what it is, and then you move on to the next thing, and the next thing is going to sound different than the thing you just did, and that's okay too.
Yeah, Kaiser Soze here just says, for me, mixing in the box got boring quick, and when I came hybrid, it was more fun and exciting to hear all the bells and whistles. I totally agree with that. I mean, that's pretty much where I come from too, you know?
Yeah, it's a different thing altogether. Mixing for me, if I mix in the box now with just plugins, I don't do that. I do it for tutorials and my instruction stuff, but outside of that, it's boring for me.
Yeah.
It's not
And
that they don't.
I
There's
haven't
nothing to
taken the
sound.
time. I'm the guy that hasn't really taken the time to mix in the box only well.
Yeah.
So one, I get bored doing it. So I every time I'm going to try a little bit of this, like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I'm going to patch in that compressor and see what happens.
Right.
And then I'm right back out, doing the other thing. So I have a handful of plugins that I have taken the time to get to know well enough to know what they do, and they get used all the time. They
Yep.
augment what I'm doing. But for me, it's probably going to take one, either my workflow demanding me go in the box, or I find a way to where it's just truly fun to me. Until one or both of those things happen, I'll be the 60/40 analog to digital, like hybrid thing, and just
Yeah.
deal with the shit along the way.
Yeah, I deal with maybe 5 plugins. There's a handful that I'll use every single mix because I just don't have the hardware counterpart, maybe, or the plugin just sounds great and it's easy. But that's it. I made a real conscious effort on my SSL rig to not install a bunch of plugins on the system. I just won't. I know I have them all, but I didn't install any of them because I don't want to do that. So there's a handful, but I'm probably 90% analog, 10% or 85% analog, 15% digital.
Nice.
That's plugins. And it's not for no reason other than, again, I wanted to keep it simple and I didn't want a ton of options. And I just wanted to say, okay, I got my gear and this is what I'm going to use. And that's it. And it works. I mean, so far, I haven't had any complaints and people like when I'm delivering them, and that's all that really matters. And in the end, if I'm going to get a new piece of hardware, it's got to be something I don't already have, or something's got to go because it's not doing it for me anymore. And then I'll swap it out. But I'm not just going to, fill up racks and racks and racks of hardware like I did with plugins, because then you're right back to looking at the rack going, what do I want to use? I don't want to do that.
Exactly. All my purchases now are based on something I want sonically or need. Honestly, at this point, there's not a whole lot of technical needs. If I never got another piece of outboard gear, I'd be able to do anything I'm doing. So at this point, it's really all wants more than needs. But everything, it's because, hey, this is the sound I need, or there's that word, that I want to have in my arsenals, and I could have used it on X amount of sessions for what I'm doing. Okay, that's the next purchase. And I have a list of my gear, and I kind of have it in order of most important, what I'm looking for, and I just go down the list as I can add new stuff in.
Yeah,
because
that's.
I don't like to get a lot of new gear all at the same time.
No, because you never get a chance to. Yeah, and you also don't spend as much time as you should with it really learning it. Yeah, because you're bouncing around. And so I make now an effort to I want to take the gear that I have and explore with it, do something a little different that I'm not, I use this on a certain thing all the time. Well, let's try it on something else, and let's try it on something else and see what it can do. And then if I find, oh, wow, I got too many of these, like a lot of repetitiveness here. Okay, let's sell some of that and get something you don't have,
Right.
Then that's how I like to do it. And that in and of itself will make the process faster. And I also feel too, at least on the mixing side, when you mix quick and you go with instinct and I don't overthink it, like that last song I was telling you about where I was going back and forth and back and forth. And if I just would have listened to my gut, the guy said the thing was perfect, but I listened to it for too long. That was the problem. Usually, like you were saying, within the first couple of listens, whatever your gut's kind of telling you, that's usually the changes that need to be made. And then you got to know when to say stop.
Yep.
And I didn't do that on that mix, and I lost a few hours that I really didn't need to lose because I was overthinking it and listening to it for too long. I like to just have it where I can go boom, 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 and within a few hours it should be coming together,
Right. All right, I want to switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
There's a topic we didn't get to last time that I want to get to, because I think it's a big one, and it's a question I think we actually got on the last stream a little bit, and I've had since then, and it's about, we're talking about clients, and we're talking about what happens after we have them and you're through the mix.
Yeah.
What do you do? And I know you do coaching I was looking at your site right now. You do studio business coaching. I mean, you do a lot of stuff, actually.
Yeah.
So you have more than, even though you have 2 websites, you really have multiple businesses inside of those 2 things.
I actually have 3 websites.
What's the third one?
Well, we have a mixing membership website called mixingmadeeasy.net, and it's all in the box of plugins. It's teaching mixing basic, mixing every month. We mix a new tune, new multi-tracks. I do a whole tutorial on how I mix the song, and I walk them through it in real time. And so, yeah, there's actually 3 websites I run. So I do a lot of mixing. I do.
Yeah. Well, this is
Yeah.
good. I mean, because
Yeah,
you're
it's
good
what I
at it.
like. What I like to do. Yeah.
So, but when you're trying to get new clients, if you can
Mm-hmm.
go back, rewind a little bit in your career before to where you are now, what would you tell someone, or how would you tell someone to go about reaching or finding new clients? They're just starting out, or they're very early on in their career anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to get work or figure out how to be more known. What would you tell someone?
Well, the way I did it, and I still think it's probably one of the most effective ways, is I would go out. There wasn't a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night that I did not go to my local clubs and see live bands. I did that for 2 or 3 years in a row. And I went out like a politician, shaking hands and kissing babies and handing out business cards. And I would find artists that I liked their music, or they were, this was important, because a lot of local bands, Weekend Warriors, 50% of the bands suck. They just do. Nice people, but they suck.
Yeah.
So
That goes without saying.
yeah, I want artists that kind of got some of their stuff together. And I would go out and I'd offer to do back then I was recording and mixing. I was kind of like what you were doing. And I'd go out and I'd say, give them a day in the studio for free. Say, look, I'm sure you have a studio, but if you have a new tune coming up, I'd like to help you out. Here's my card. I have my website. Check it out. But I'd like to work with you. I dig your music. Maybe we'll do one song together. And I can't tell you how many times that one song, we did one song, their new tune, they came in, they tracked it, we did a mix, how that turned into a full album a year later or 6 months later, or an EP, more times than I can tell you. So I would just go out and try to meet as many artists as I could and offer in that part of my career, offer them some free work. And if you like the work, and I've had times where I'd offer to them for free and they liked it so much, they give me a tip or whatever, and they give me a few $100 or whatever it was, but it was no expectation of them to do that. And that's how I met a lot of my early clients that turned into repeat clients. I was in the bars every single weekend for years, and and it worked. That was the easiest way
So
for me anyway.
It's old school networking.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Again, we're talking about 15 years ago or so. I mean, so the internet was around, but it wasn't like it is today. But even today with the social media, it's so cluttered and crowded. It's hard to get your head to poke out from the crowd. There's, the problem that I find in this business, I'm sure you run into this, and I run into this maybe even more because I don't do tracking. I just do mixing. So there's all file sharing. Is anybody that has a laptop and a piece of software calls themselves an engineer, right? Where guys like us that spent 20 years in the craft learning how to be an engineer, whether it's school or on the job or both. So because there's so many people out there that are engineers, there's a lot of competition. And we live in a world today where a lot of people anyway, expect something for nothing. So there's guys that I know that are online right now that'll mix songs for $50, which infuriates me because you're just devaluing this craft, So that's a person that doesn't know what they're doing. They call themselves an engineer, and somebody thinks, oh, they'll mix a song for $50. Why would I pay Dave $500?
Yeah, they don't understand the added value of
they don't
what
understand of what a professional does. So I still think because of all of that, even though you can reach more people and you should network on social media, I still think going out into your local community and meeting the local musicians and having that face-to-face where you're talking to somebody, you're meeting them, you're shaking their hand, and you show an interest in what they do, that attracts people to you as a business. And even if you have to do a little bit of free work up front, if you do a good job, it will always pay off later. At least it always did for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many projects I've gotten, paid gigs because of doing that. And I still feel that's important.
That allowed you to kind of build a portfolio a little bit that way too, of showing people your work, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because then so that would be part of the deal. So I'd be like, okay, you're an artist, and let's do a song together. I'm not going to charge you any money for it, but will you allow me to use your song on my website as part of my portfolio? Or if we're shooting some video in the studio behind the scenes, can I use some of that footage on my YouTube channel or whatever? And it would be that kind of give and take. I'm going to give you a free recording session or a free mix, and you're going to allow me to use your music for, for whatever. And sometimes I actually still do that today. Because you know how it is on YouTube with music and copyrights and everything, you have to have original music. So sometimes I'll work with artists and I'll cut them a deal and I'll say, hey, it's a really great song. Do you mind if I use it in one of my tutorials? Can I use it in one of my courses? And they sign a release form. And that's some of the trade-off. I'll take maybe knock a little bit off my price. Can I use your music? I think it's really good. And so things like that. And that works too, that works too. So it's kind of like a barter system in a way, and it allows you to build a portfolio.
Right.
And I think that's so important to keep, not only build a portfolio, but you got to keep refreshing it, because if you're really doing this for a living, or trying to anyway, you should be getting better, right? So my mix from 2 years ago is not what I want the client to listen to. I want them to hear the latest thing I'm doing, because hopefully
Right.
it's better, So I'm always building and refreshing that portfolio and keep, churning new projects in and out, just so people can hear, this is what you can expect to get if you hire me today.
Right. As you moved into more mixing, have you started to use any, kind of taken that same old school networking thing and done that with, say, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, where you're reaching out online?
Yes, a little bit. Yep. On Facebook and on Instagram, reaching out to artists and stuff, emails and stuff. I've gotten a couple of jobs that way. Now it's to the point where because I have so many students that I coach, that helps me too. See, so I built an online, I have 3 websites. It's all training. It's all tutorials. So many of my clients originally bought my training courses because they wanted to do it themselves. So they thought. And then they get into it and realize that, wow, this is not as easy as just, well, we'll watch a course and all of a sudden I can sound like a professional engineer. Well, no. If it was that quick, everybody would be doing it. That gets you going in the right direction. But in order to do this at a professional level, it takes many years and many, many hours of practice, just like learning an instrument. And so the musician that bought my course now hires me to mix his band's music. I get a lot of it that way. So now, because of my education business, it also now becomes, I get a lot of clients that way. So a lot of this now becomes referrals. And now I've gotten to the point where I don't need to go out to the local clubs. I haven't had to do that in a long time. I got enough work coming in, and people that see me on YouTube and see me on, podcasts or, live streams like this will reach out to me, and I get enough stuff coming in where I don't need to go out and solicit as much as I used to. But I did do that for the first several years. I mean, I did. It took a few years. It really, truly did.
Yeah, it takes time to build. And I think you're right with how noisy the whole online thing has become, so it's really hard to poke through. I mean, you think, I'll get some things, I'll put up my Instagram, I'll put up on my Facebook, wherever, and people will see it. And it just doesn't work that way. I mean, a lot of the artists I work with, I'm trying to help them with some of their release strategies, or at least making sure they have everything they need. Now I try to get some other PR companies involved that really know what they're doing, so I can pass the artist on to someone who's really, really good at it. But I'm still helping them, trying to put things together, or understanding why they need someone to go to that next stage of getting their music out there. Because they go, how are you going to release it? Oh, well, we'll have the video out, and we'll put that on our Facebook page, and then we'll put a short version out on Instagram, and then if they have a YouTube channel, we'll put it on YouTube. Okay, well, are you active on YouTube? Well, no, we have a couple videos. Well, if you're not active on YouTube,
forget it.
It takes a lot of work, because yes, you got shorts and things now, but you have to do long form video too. You really need to curate that. It's like, okay, great. How many Instagram followers? Well, we have, 1,000 Instagram followers. Okay, what's your engagement like? When you look at it, and it's a couple comments here, 40 likes there.
Right.
That's not a release strategy.
No.
You need something beyond that, or you got to figure out how to build that part of it up, So, because everybody's doing it, and everybody just tends to throw things out there. you know, with
Yeah,
no plans.
there's a lot of noise out there, so it's hard to poke through. And what I find, either with artists or even just people, engineers that don't want to do this for a living, they have no real understanding of the amount of consistency that it takes to, whether, let's say, start a YouTube channel and make YouTube videos and have people watch those videos. It takes years to do this, and you have to be consistent. And what I find is most people, they get really excited for about the first month. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. I'm going to do a video. And we're going to do this. I'm going to post every day. I'm going to do this for 3 weeks. And then people go, holy shit, it's a lot of work, man. And nobody's watching. Why isn't anybody watching? I put out this awesome piece of content or this awesome music video. You mean 1 million people didn't see it? No, 5 people didn't see it, because because of the way the algorithms work and stuff. You have to be out there every day, every day, every day. What I spend most of my time on in my businesses is YouTube content. That's, if I had to look at what my hourly, it's where I make the least amount of money, but it's where I spend the most amount of time. And it's because it takes a long time to start to get noticed, and where, to the point where people, now if I put out a piece of content, I know I'm going to get a certain amount of people watching it and comment on it. But I've been doing that since 2012. So, I mean, we're talking 10 years, and it's only been in the last 2 or 3 years where it's really started to, okay, now we're starting to move a little bit. And then when I started the second YouTube channel with Dave with the SSL, we got some followers really quickly because people were coming from my other channel, and it was starting to build. But it took a long time to get there. And most people won't put that kind of time in. They won't. So
It's habits. I mean, I really do believe that we are creatures of habit. I mean, all of us in one way or another. And doing this is, you have to get you're right, it's all about consistency, but the only way to make that consistency last more than past the 2 or 3 weeks, and that usually is about what it is. Just a little less than a month, and all of a sudden you're sweating, you're like, oh my God, this is too much. You have to create habits that keep pushing you forward. And I don't know about you, and I just recently started doing this because I've been bad at consistency myself. And some of it's based around work. When there's a lot of work coming in,
sure,
I'm not going to stay up from midnight to 6 in the morning in between sessions working on the next YouTube video. It's just going to wait a little bit.
Right.
But getting those habits and planning, going, okay, what do I need just to keep it consistent? What will be interesting? What have people asked for? And have that list, and come up with some sort of list going, okay, well, I can knock these out, and I can get a little bit ahead. And I think I know we've talked about that before. I think you're pretty good about that. And I go in chunks where I get ahead and I have it. And then things get busy here, and I'm right back into, oh crap, it's Monday. I don't have this week's video.
Yeah.
Guess I'm staying up all night.
I have a content well, I do it in a spreadsheet, but I have a content calendar that I try to, with my 2 channels, and I have a list of ideas, and when I try to block them out, I do everything in a month block. So I'll take a week and go, okay, mixing music analog this week, we're doing 5 videos. And I did that last week. And I only post once a week on every channel. So I'll do 5 videos, and now I'm 5 weeks ahead on that channel. And now I already know, okay, this week coming up, I know I have 4 or 5 videos that have to be done for Home Recording Made Easy. And I'll do those. And now I got a month, 5 weeks where I'm doing 1 video a week. I just release them at different times. And then while I have that 5-week buffer of content, now it's like, okay, I got this client's mix that's got to be done. I got this other thing, and I squeeze it all in. So it's constantly moving the chess pieces on the board. But the one thing that I almost never, is I never try to go, if I know every Fridays is usually my release days on my videos, there's got to be a video every Friday, got to be a video, got to be a video. And even if sometimes at the last minute, I got to whip something together that I know is not going to do very well, but I think it's a pretty cool idea and it's a short little video, I post it anyway, because it's all part of that algorithm and that consistency that people, and you know how it is. You think the video you think is going to do really well does lousy, and the video that you think doesn't have a chance is the one that everybody's watching. And so I don't even get so hung up in that anymore. And I don't do, as much, what should I do, research and keyword searches and all that. I don't have the time for that. I just try to do what I think it might be interesting. And more times than not, I hit it pretty good, and sometimes there's a dud in there, and sometimes I get lucky and there's one that gets a ton of views. It's just, but it's all about that consistency. I know every Friday there has to be a video on every channel, so I try to do them in chunks of 4 and 5.
So what made you pick Friday?
I don't, it wasn't always Friday. I just fell into it. It was just kind of the way my schedule was working. It used to be I would do one channel would be Tuesday and the other channel would be Friday. And it just happened to work out that I don't know. For me, it's like, you know what? Screw it. They're all going out on Friday and that's it,
Right.
and I've tried experimenting with different days. When do I release different times? Do my views go up and down? And it never really made much of a difference. I know some people get really into the analytics side of YouTube, especially. I've tried to do that. It's never really met. I've tried hiring people to do that on my team. I've never seen any real impact. So I just go, you know what? There's no quick way to go from here to here unless you're in like, you're reviewing tech and iPhones and computers. In our
Right.
in our audio space, it's slow and steady. You just got to go every week a video, every week a video, every month a live stream, and just keep pushing it out there. And slowly it grows. I don't pay for I don't pay for likes and subscribes. I don't do ads. I don't do any of that stuff. It's all organic. I put it out there, and if you subscribe to me, great. And if you don't, oh well. And I just keep moving on. And I I try not to think about it past that, because every time I've ever tried to try to figure out a more effective way to be known on social media, it's always ended up costing me thousands of dollars with very little results.
Yeah.
So
And
I
I
just,
think it's real easy to get lost in that side of things
yeah,
and not
yeah.
focus on the other. Especially like you and I are similar in the fact that we don't have a big team. I don't
No
have 5
big
people
team.
over here doing anything.
You
I
actually
have
right
multiple
now,
personalities.
yeah. You at least have a dog that's part of your team. I don't even got that. I got
Yeah, but
nothing here.
she's back here. Look at this.
Yeah.
There's my help taking a
There's your
nap.
help. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a one man show on Mixing Music Analog. I have my buddy Dave. He's part of that, and he's part of my team. We're buddies, and he helps. But Home Recording Made Easy is all me. Mixing Made Easy done. That's all me. I answer
Yeah.
every email. I answer every comment. No one's in my back end of my websites doing any of that. I don't have virtual assistants. I have none of that stuff. I
Right.
am everybody.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, that's crazy. You'll never be able to scale your business if you don't do that. And I realize that, but I've tried bringing in social media marketers and that shit, and it just cost me a fortune, and I never really got anything out of it.
And that's the big part of it is you spend money and the return on that investment is nil.
Almost
Most of the time.
Unless you're going to
I've tried a few also, and it's been the same kind of experience. And maybe that's my fault for hiring the wrong people, which that very well could be. I've tried assistants here, and every time I've only had like 2 assistants in the past 5 years that I really, really dug, that were fantastic, and neither one lives in LA anymore.
Yeah, you know what it is for me too is it's hard, especially when you're doing things virtually. It's hard. How do you know who's good? And the other thing is too, I think I have a pretty strong work ethic, and I don't believe in, I had someone tell me a long time ago in my career. They said, there's 3 types of people in this world. There's people that make things happen. There's people who wait for things to happen. And there's people who stand around and go, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And I consider myself, and always have, I'm a driven person, and I believe in getting things done. I don't want to sit around and talk about it. I don't want to have a bunch of Zoom meetings. We're going to pick it out. We're going to hit it. We're going to focus it. We're going to move on. That's the only way I could keep 3 websites running.
Right.
I can't, and what I have found is that every time I've ever worked with people and paid them a lot of money, by the way, I found I had to spend more time managing them to get the job done than anything else. And I'm like, but if I'm paying you to do something, I don't want to have to go manage you now. I may as well just do it myself. And part of it is I just have never really been able to find the right team of people. When people say a team, it's like, I can't even find one. What do you mean a team?
I know.
And so I just go, you know what? I don't need to blow up and be, look, I make a living. I like what I'm doing. I don't want to work 15 hours a day. I have no interest in that. I want to work a finite amount of time, and I want to make a living, and I want to have fun. And I think for me, the business will only get so big because of that, because to scale and to really go big time, you're talking about a lot of commitment. And at this stage of my life, I don't know that I'm willing to go that. I don't know that I'm willing to do that. I'm not 25 looking to set the world on fire, man. You know, it's like I want to make a comfortable living and I want to do something that I love, and I don't want to be stressed out too much about the business. I just need to do enough to keep myself going and to, you know, make a decent living and, you know, like I
And
said,
enjoy it.
And enjoy it.
That's the other thing, is enjoying it.
Yeah, I don't need to have 100,000 YouTube subscribers, you know. I'm surprised I have as many as I do. So it's good enough.
It's hard. I mean, the YouTube thing, you hit about like in that 20-ish thousand area, and then things take a lot longer to hit the next big milestone. And I know once you get closer to that 6 figures, it starts to take off in a different way. Because I've watched other channels and I've talked to other people that have channels that are over 100,000, and they all said the same thing. It was, you know, really, really hard in the beginning, and then you hit, you know, a couple thousand, and then your jump to 20, 25,000 tends to go a little quicker. And then that jump from 25 to 100,000
takes time.
Is a slog, you know.
It really
but then you hit that 100,000, and all of a sudden some things start to open up in a different way, you know. So it's perseverance with any of this stuff, whether it's your YouTube channel, your mixing business, recording studio, being a freaking artist, writing the music. All of this stuff is perseverance. Because if you just stop at the first time, it's hard. You won't do anything in life. You won't make it through the McDonald's drive-through because they'll fuck your order up and you'll give up, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. It just takes time. If you're willing to put the time in, you can do it. I get, you know, a lot of people, students that'll ask me, some people that are, you know, they want to maybe move away to a full-time job and they want to do some of this stuff for a part-time living, even just to make a little bit of money. And they'll say, I just had someone ask me a few months ago, guy makes almost 300 grand in his J job. He makes almost $300,000 a year. Wants to know if I think he can make 300 grand a year mixing music online. You know, and I said, well, you know, I don't want to burst your bubble and say it could never be done, but I wouldn't be so quick to quit your day job to come. I don't care how good of a mixing engineer you are. Nobody knows you.
Right.
You know, and so you're talking about building something from nothing. So unless you're, you know, maybe in the business or in a location where you can network and you can just get in at the right place at the right time, the chances of you being able to make, you know, multiple 6 figures right out of the gate is almost nil. It's nil. I can't imagine you can do that. I wouldn't recommend anybody try to do that. I said, so if you really want to be in this business, because I think a lot of it too is it's a fun business, right? It's the music industry. It's fun. It's sexy. It's, you know, but people don't see what goes on behind the scenes. So I say, look, if you really want to know what this business is like, do it on the side, do it at night, do it on the weekends. That's how I started. I had a full-time job for many years, and I worked nights and weekends until I made a full-time career out of it. And if you're willing to stick with it and you're good at what you do, or at least recognize that you have to continue to get better at what you do, you can make a living at this for sure. But it's probably going to take 5 years, 3 to 5 years to make it a full-time job. And it's an enormous amount of work. It's fun.
And understanding the infrastructure to make it all happen. That's it, because it's a lot different than when you're just doing it for fun and learning. And then when the pressure becomes, oh, now I have to make my income from this. The game does change.
Big time.
You know, a lot, if nothing else, from the pressure of it, you know.
Right. That's absolutely right.
And you can become gun shy. You know, I think you almost have to do the opposite. Once you decide this is going to be my living, I'm going for this, you cannot be afraid to make mistakes.
No.
I mean, the more things that I've done have failed than have worked. I mean,
say that all the time.
Way more. And there was a time when it kind of bothered me, and then I realized that, hey, that's my R&D.
That's right.
Because some of the things that failed, pieces that morphed into something else that actually works now. Because it was just that overall idea I had right there didn't work, but these 2 or 3 things inside there, hey, those are pretty good. If I put those over here, now I got something cooking.
Right. That's absolutely right. I've way more of my ideas have not worked than worked. What people see publicly now is the stuff that actually worked. What they didn't see is the 5 years that I did everything from a recording engineer to I had a local television show. I did all kinds of things that people don't even know about. And so, but inside of the music space to try to build presence. And like you said, that didn't work, but it's like, well, but I met that person and that little piece of what I was doing that in this project translates perfect to this next project. And you have to be willing to fail. And, you know, there's no shortage of people out there that are going to tell you that you're not good, that what you're going to do is not going to work. I mean, especially on the internet. I mean, I went through that when I bought a console. I mean, the amount of negativity that I received when I started that channel and just bought a console.
Ridiculous, by the way. Just nonsense.
Everyone told me, everybody, with the exception of maybe my buddy Dave, who at first told me I was crazy, but he warmed up to the idea really quickly. But everybody told me that this was a boat anchor. I'm going to spend all this money. Nobody has the budget today to pay me to mix music. Nobody is going in this direction. Everybody's going to the box. Your YouTube channel's not going to be successful. No one's going to pay you. You are out of your mind. And I've only had that thing about 2 years now. And I work, like I said, I've mixed more records than the last year and a half.
Well, luckily, you know what? Everyone's right in a way. And this is a good thing. You are crazy. So am I. That's why this works.
It works.
I mean, that's why you have 3 websites. You have multiple successful businesses. That's why you and I are here talking now, because being crazy is the only way you can stay in this and push through the madness.
Yeah, you got to try. And you like you said, you can't be afraid to fail. So, you know, I said, okay, I'm going to spend a shitload of money. And I said, so what's the worst that can happen? Well, I'll do this for a couple of years. We'll have fun. Dave and I are having fun, and it has to be fun first, money second. Right. If you're going into this money first, go do something else. You can make a lot more money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But if we're having fun and we're playing around and we're learning, and in a couple of years, if it doesn't take off, or if we just get tired of it and we say, yeah, we're over that, I'll just sell it. You know what I mean? I'll sell it.
Yep.
I'll get a good portion of my money. No one's gonna
die from you buying a console or buying a piece of gear or having to do a recall. No one's getting harmed. Maybe your ego sometimes, but other than that, we're all gonna live through it.
Yeah, and it's like I'll sell it all and I'll take whatever money I got left and I'll say, okay, what do you want to try next? And that's that. It's always been that for me, because if you didn't do that, I wouldn't be in this business. I would have stayed where I was working at a corporate job. I mean, I was making a lot of money in corporate America and took a big risk to come do this, but I wanted, and I just took what I did in corporate and I just applied it to a business and said, I'm just going to work hard, put my head down. I know I'm going to make a bunch of stupid decisions along the way, but I know that I'm going to make some good ones along the way, and I'm going to not be afraid to try, and I'm just going to keep going. And after about 4 years of doing that part-time as I was working and didn't have the pressure to make money right out of the gate, because that was a big point you made. I didn't just walk out of my job and say, I'm going to be a recording studio now. I mean, you know, I had a wife and a kid. I mean, you can't do that. So I did it part-time, and I did it on the weekends, and I worked all the crazy hours, and it morphed into full-time. But if I would have listened to everyone that told me I was crazy, you and I wouldn't even be talking right now.
Right.
And I'm, you know, so, you know, there's no shortage of people out there that are going to tell you you're crazy and you're going to fail. No shortage.
And people, I think a lot of people like to do that because most of the time it's them projecting their personal views or insecurities onto you. But I remember early, within my first year or two of having this place open, I talked to a guy here in LA that's one of the big dudes. He's been around forever. Studios sign up with him. He goes and finds clients for them, or people call him to find studios in different areas. And he's well known to a lot of studios here in town. And I had a conversation with him because someone said I should hook up with him and get on his list and start. And one of the first things out of his mouth were, "Why are you doing a studio in LA? It's dumb." And I'm thinking, I'm talking to a referral service right now for this. I'm like, I don't think I like you. And then, of course, I didn't sign up with him. And after a few conversations with some other studios that had used him, and some of them still were, I felt like I made the right decision. Because if the first thing I hear out of someone's mouth is that, there's no way I'm going to work with you.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's crazy.
Why would I do
that? I get it. I don't know. That's weird. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you said, I think anyone that tells you that you're going to fail, it's because they failed themselves, or they can't do it themselves. So they're going to tell you can't do it. And, you know, like I said, you know, maybe people are right. Maybe it won't work, but you know, it's all nobody ever became successful. They told Steve Jobs he was crazy. They told Bill Gates he was crazy. You You know, people think about that stuff now, all that technology, but if you go back and look at the history when they were building Apple computers in Steve Jobs' mother's garage, and they told him he was out of his mind, who's going to put a computer in their home? You know, and now, now you can't even think without thinking Apple. But it's that kind of mentality where like you're willing to damn what everyone else says. I'm going to do what I think is right, and I'm going to try. Those are the people that break through. Nobody ever became successful without taking a risk and without trying. At least
Right.
no one that I know.
No.
And so I just say, I'm going to do what I want to do. And, no, every time I've ever done anything, people told me I was crazy, and it's so far I've been pretty successful at it. So, hey, what do they know?
Well, I think that's what you just said is important too. You're doing what you want to do, and I think that is scary for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I have a lot of friends. I mean, I'm lucky out here in LA with a lot of my friends. They're all musicians, so they're all nuts, which is why we all get along. But I have a certain amount of friends that are stuck in a certain pattern of life, and it's scary to break that mold, even though they're unhappy. It's like, man, at some point we're all gonna be dead.
That's right.
And I would rather eventually die, regardless of what money I have left at the end, knowing that I did what I wanted to do, than stay safe in something that I'm miserable in for my entire life.
No doubt.
And I like to work. I'm getting older. I mean, I have a birthday next month. How old am I going to be? See, I'm getting so old, I don't even know.
It doesn't matter.
But I almost am more driven now than I was 20 years ago.
Yeah, me too. And,
and
for
maybe
all
it's because I'm more
reasons.
focused. I don't know.
Well, you know what it is? It's for different reasons. When you're younger, it's because you want to make money. You got a career, I got to make money. I got to buy a house, got to buy a car, I got to have money, money, money. When you're young, when you don't have money, it's all about making money. And then as you get a little older and after you got some things and you're making a living and you have a family or whatever it is, you start to go, well, I'm doing it for whole different reasons. I'm doing it because I don't want to be the old man in the old folks home going, I wish I did this and I should have done that and I could have done that. And how come I didn't do? I don't want to be that guy. I don't need to be the richest guy in the cemetery. You know what I mean? Once you, you got to make a living. You have to make money. Yes, we all do. And who doesn't like making money? But at what point are you doing it for? Because life is short.
Yeah.
And I want to do something that I'm having fun in. And as long as I can make enough money to do what I need to do in life, and have a little bit of a safety net, I'm good. I don't need to make a ton of money. It's like I said, I don't need to have the most clients. I'd rather have quality clients. Right. I don't need to, I'm not going to take every dollar that Tom, Dick, or Harry is going to give me just to make money. The project's got to be right. The client's got to be right. And so it's just a different way of thinking, I think. And a lot of people, we're not traditionally taught to think that way. We're traditionally taught to, think in a different way. And so, but if you want to be in business and if you want to be in this kind of a business, I think you have to be willing to think differently and creatively and think outside the box, get used to rejection and try and don't give up. And if you're really passionate about it and you really enjoy it and you're willing to work hard, you can do it if you're good at what you do. I really believe that.
I totally agree with you. I totally 100% agree with that. Yeah. And it is fun. I mean, some of my favorite nights are when I'm just in here and out of nowhere, all of a sudden I've pulled a session up and I'm like, what if I did that into that? What if and I'm just literally it's my learning. It's my practicing. Yes. And hours can go by. I do the same thing. I can go sit on a piano. I've done this so many times. It's like 1 a.m. I'm going to go practice for a half hour just before I'm done for the day. Next thing I know, it's 4 a.m. Yeah. And to me, that happens when I'm doing music, whether I'm in a session, mixing, whatever. And I think that's a beautiful part of this because it's when you're happy doing what you do that time you get lost in it. It doesn't disappear. Right. You get lost in what you're doing. Right. And that, I think, no matter what you do, I don't care if you're painting, if you're, some people selling cars or whatever that happens to be for me and you, it happens to be music. But there's something about that level of enjoyment that's hard to explain to someone that hasn't found that yet. Right. Or someone who just does a traditional 9 to 5 in a job they hate because they have to pay the mortgage. Right. I mean, and I know what that mentality was. I mean, I did that until I was in my, probably in my late 30s, early 40s. I understand that mentality. That's the way you're trained to come up. And, that's why my parents taught me, go to work and just get a job, make money and
just grin and bear it and stay somewhere for 30 years. And if you hate the people you work for, so what? You're getting a paycheck. And I don't know whatever struck me, but thank God I somehow said, I can't do this till I retire. I'll die of a heart attack, man. I got to do something different.
Yep.
And thank God I had the courage to do it. I don't know how, but yeah, it's a different thing. And so I've done both sides of it. I didn't just get out of school and just wing it and just happen to stumble upon this. I did the whole real job, go to work for somebody thing, and was pretty successful at it. And so I understand both sides of it. It is a whole different way of thinking. And it is scary at times when you first start. You're like, holy crap, is this going to work? And, but
I'm not even doing what I technically went to school for. I went to school as a musician, mainly a drummer, and did the touring thing and the live gig thing. And now, I mean, I still play for some clients and obviously, some of the video stuff for the YouTube channel, but the playing side of it's 5%, probably even less of what I do now. And all of that started from being in the back of an RV on the road with an original Mac G4 and Pro Tools free. 8 channels is all you got, and you couldn't save shit. And that was the beginning of where I am today. And it all just happened by being open to it.
Yeah, and not being afraid of it, and just and say, I want to do this, and just figuring out as you go. I mean, a lot of that is learning on the job, and then you learn how to run a business. You learn. I mean, you just learn how to do it. I mean, and the good news is it's a taught skill. It's not that complicated, but the one thing you have to be, I think, even as a musician, is you have to be insanely focused and disciplined and understand what the hell you really want to do.
Yep.
And be willing to do no matter what. We're going there, and we're gonna trip and fall along the way, but we're going there. And I think for at least the business coaching that I do with students, that's usually the biggest hang up, is they get real excited for a very short period of time, and then they realize how much work it is, and they just don't have that internal thing to just drive them, and they give up.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, some people don't have that, and that is totally and utterly okay.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it. Nothing, it's nothing wrong with that, but that's usually what it takes. And it's usually, because I just think it's a misconception that they just, they see you on YouTube and like, oh, I could do that. And it's like, well, yeah, but this took 10 years, man.
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. I mean, think about most bands that, hit big and, overnight sensation. None of them were overnight sensations.
No, that's rare.
I remember when Tragically Hip was Tragic Kingdom. Oh my God, it was mid-90s. It's one of my favorite albums. I can't remember the name of the band. Spiderweb was one of the songs. Help me out here. I'm having a brain fart. See, I'm getting old. I can't even remember the music I loved in the 90s. But anyway, there's so many examples of bands that all of a sudden were huge, and people thinking, you see it, overnight success and this and that. Yeah. And there's 10 years of past of them playing and slugging it out through the clubs.
Absolutely.
There's no such thing as an overnight success.
Very, very rare. They're 1 in a million. It's the 1 in a million.
Right.
It takes a long time. Like I say, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That is true. That those cliche things that people say, it really is true. It really is true. Yep. It's just consistency, focus, driven, keep going, don't stop. Do it for the right reasons, and then it will happen. It will eventually start to happen for you. Yeah. Because I don't think I'm any more talented or any more, like some people, I'm not the best mix engineer around, not even by a long shot. There's a lot of people that are better than me, but
I think a lot of people work with you. A lot of the work we get is because of personalities.
Yes.
People come to work with you because they don't just like the work you do. That speaks for itself, but they also like you, the person.
Absolutely.
And that working relationship is good. And that is a gigantic part of it too.
Yeah, it's a people business, right? So, you don't have to be the best. You just got to be good enough. You got to be good enough for the client, and once you get to a certain level, it all becomes very subjective anyway, and it's just then it's about the people and what kind of people do you want to work with. And if you're, and that's, though, I think we talked a little bit that last time, those are some of the soft skills that are harder to teach. And sometimes you can't really teach it, because you could be really great what you do, but if you're a jerk to work with, you're not going to get repeat business. And so, or if you have too much of an ego and you can't take criticism or, I mean, I've especially as a mixing engineer, I mean, you know, people, you know, they don't like something in the mix. You can't take offense to that, you know, and you can't say, well, no, we're not going to do that. Well, you know, you can say that, but that, you know, you got to be careful about those things. I mean, I always say it's, you know, it's not your name on the front of the record. It's the artist name on the front of the record. It's their record. So you have to be accommodating and you have to know how to navigate that stuff. And you know, if you know how to work with people, you can guide them to your way of thinking and in the best interest of their song. But if you send them something and they don't like something about it, you can't take offense to and go, so I'm not going to help. I'm not going to do that for you. Well, I mean, you could take that stance, but I don't know how much repeat business you're going to get if you get that. And I've had clients say that to me, like I'm the third engineer they've been to. And the first two engineers they couldn't work with because every time they said they wanted to do something, the engineer kept telling them what couldn't be done instead of what could be done. And I said, well, you know, I'm glad you came to me, you know, and so and you have to working with clients in general, especially artists and musicians, is a delicate thing, and it takes time and years of practice to
Mm-hmm.
get to do that. I don't think you can learn that in a school. You can only learn that by watching others and know what they're doing and doing it yourself.
You learn that kind of stuff on the job.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where, you know, you learn those lessons. And sometimes they're good lessons and sometimes they're really hard ones to learn, but you
Sometimes
learn them nonetheless.
Yeah, sometimes you said the wrong thing, but in the end, you know, you hopefully you get better at it and you just can't let your you know, it's like an artist, like right, trying to sell a song. Most people are not going to like your song, but you what you're looking for is that small percentage of people that do.
Right.
And there's a lot of rejection.
Yep.
And you just, or like an actor or an actress, you know, how many actors do you say, you know, they've been on 2 billion, you know, auditions and they all get turned down, but they didn't stop, they didn't give up, and then they got that one part. And oh, by the way, that was on Game of Thrones or something like that. And now the world has changed for that person,
Yeah, exactly.
but they didn't give up.
Perseverance, you know? Man. You got to keep pushing.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the only way any of this stuff works. So
I 100% agree. And that's where most people fall short.
Yep. Well, dude, this has been awesome. Absolutely awesome. We're about 4:30 now. I need to get some food in me.
No, that's great, man.
Before I start trying to finish up some video tonight. But I would love to do this once a month. We should just try to set up a rough schedule of once a month. Hey, we're going to do one here, and we're just going to get on. We're going to chat about things.
Yeah.
And, you know, cover some, I liked some of the topics on the business today. That's one that doesn't get talked about enough, you know, so I'd love to have that always be a piece of it, but it's always fun to talk with you.
Yeah, same here, man. I love the conversation. And yeah, I would love to have you come back on our channel as well. We can keep flip-flopping back and forth and just sharing our knowledge of anyone that really cares and wants to hear it. You know,
maybe that's how we do it. We'll just flip-flop months.
Yeah, we could do that.
You know, we'll just go back between the channels and just have a good time with it.
Yeah, I think it's with so many things you could talk about between the gear and the business and everything. There's endless possibilities, you know.
And with the two of us, there's no shortage of talking.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, no, I would love that.
So, well, dude, thank you. Thanks to everyone that joined us today. I'm looking down at the computer. I've got like computers freaking everywhere right now. It's crazy. But this was a lot of fun, David. Yeah, we'll set up another time soon. And yeah, everybody in the meantime, have a good time making music because that's what all this is about.
That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, David, stay on. Don't go anywhere for a second, okay?
Okay, yep.
So, all right, everybody. Have a happy Sunday evening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Let's see when it goes out.